So welcome everybody to Oschersleben as we get set for our first qualifying session of the new DTM season 2023, the 39th year of the DTM. We've got 28 drivers from 11 countries signed up, 27 in action this weekend, 3 DTM champions. And at Oschersleben, we begin our championship charge, the first of 8 weekends, 16 races. It's a 3.6 kilometre long circuit, 14 turns, and it has hosted DTM since 2000, but not since 2015. It's our first time here at this wonderful venue, the most northern circuit in Germany and the 4th purpose-built circuit in the country, which dates back to the late 1990s. So the first time we've been here for 8 years. So a brand new era of DTM coming here around this challenging circuit. There you can see the overhead view of the beautiful weather that we've got here. It's coming up to 15 degrees. It should be around about 21 degrees by the time we get to the race at 1:30 local time this afternoon. And a good crowd already building up here at what's always a well-supported weekend of racing at Oschersleben. A very enthusiastic crowd. It's a great circuit for spectating. Lots of the banking is raised just above the circuit, so you get very close to the action. You get to see the stars of the DTM, like this young man, the reigning champion, Sheldon van der Linde, who set the fastest time of all yesterday across the 2 free practice sessions. Only driver to get into the 1:21s. Now with the number 1 on his car, the first ever African DTM champion. But another driver that went quickly yesterday in the first free practice session and topping the times in that earlier session was Mirko Bortolotti, who was 4th in the championship last year and back in the Lamborghini, having had a championship which slightly fell off the rails 2/3 of the way through 2022, but it was for a lot of the season a championship leader and a championship contender. But we've got these familiar faces. We've also got 9 rookies that are fighting with them. One of the familiar faces, of course, is the older brother of Sheldon van der Linde, now in his 3rd season of DTM, Kelvin van der Linde, who is going to be battling for the championship this season, I would imagine, after a difficult and slightly frustrating 2022 campaign. And he will once again be teammates to Ricardo Feller, who went pretty well across the free practice sessions yesterday. One of the 10 different race winners that we've got on the grid. He won his sole race so far in his first season of DTM in Imola last season. Alessio De Leda is another 2nd season racer, the Italian, back with us. He picked up his first ever championship point in that dramatic final weekend at Hockenheim 6 or 7 months ago to pick up a 10th place finish in race 2. So he's got the consistency of being back with the same team, but not quite with the same car, because that's an evolution of the Lamborghini from last year, an Evo 2. And René Rast, the 3-time champion, is always going to be a driver to beat, but we're going to have to get used to this. He's no longer an Audi driver, he's a BMW driver now, and with Schubert Motorsport as teammates to, of course, the champion of 2022. Frank Pereira, he's having his first full season in the championship. He's somebody who back in the day raced in Formula 3 in the Euro Series against a young Lewis Hamilton. He's built up lots of Porsche experience over the years and GT experience, but now he is racing in the Lamborghini. Had a guest spot last year, 1 weekend racing in the championship at the Norris Ring, but he is back for a first full campaign. Sheldon van der Linde gets his gloves on, ready to go for 20 minutes of action to set the grid for race 1. There's lots to talk about with various rule changes that we've got for DTM this season, but qualifying stays the same. 3 points if you get pole, 2 points if you qualify 2nd, a point for qualifying in 3rd. 2 20-minute sessions, 1 on each day, and the first qualifying session sets the grid for race 1. So while we wait for the cars to come out onto the track for what promises to be a thrilling affair after a really close couple of practice sessions yesterday, let's introduce you to the voices that you're going to be hearing from. I'm Chris Hartley, here at Oschersleben for the first time, but somebody that knows this track much better than me and has been here before to enjoy the action that you do always seem to get here at Oschersleben firsthand is Brian Oliver. Brian, welcome.
Morning, Chris. How good is it to be here? The sun is shining. There was an air of tension when the ADAC acquired the rights to DTM back in December. Since then, that tension has risen and risen, and now it is almost explosive. We've had all sorts of pre-season testing, we've had free practice, but now this is where it really counts, where the lights turn green and the qualifying starts. The man who is in the box seats, Sheldon van der Linde, the quickest man in free practice yesterday, the defending champion. He's looking like a relaxed man this weekend, isn't he?
Yeah, he's going to be feeling differently because, you know, he's been trying to achieve this goal, not for a long time because he's still a very young driver, but been trying to achieve this goal of being a DTM champion. Now he's ticked that box off, so you can have that little bit more self-confidence. You know you can do the job, you know the team can do the job, but there's a different pressure, I suppose, because you are the driver that everybody is trying to beat. You're the benchmark, and he certainly was the benchmark yesterday in that BMW M4 GT3 car with a 121.96, a lap which looked really smooth actually. Didn't really look like he was pushing it on the ragged edge, but my goodness, it was quick. And so he was the only driver to break into the 121s across the 2 practice sessions we had yesterday. And they also had 3 practice sessions on Thursday, and a lot of them were here on a private test a week ago as well. So a mega lap. One key change is that we're all on Pirelli tyres now, so all using the Pirellis across the course of these 2 qualifyings and 2 races that we've got to start the campaign. So just as a benchmark time, 121.9 the quickest time yesterday. Rennie Rast, his teammate, was second in free practice 2, and it was impressive stuff from Mattia Drudi as well in the Tresor Orange Audi number 40, set the 3rd quickest time. And young Mick Wieshofer, the Austrian driver who Brian will have commentated on many times in the GT Masters Championship, he was impressive as well, wasn't he, in 4th place?
He really was. One of the many young rookies coming into this championship. We're looking up and down the driver entry list, and it is pure quality from top to bottom. This is such a short and sharp qualifying session. The circuit is not massive, 3.6 kilometers around, and all of the cars, well, not quite all of them, but most of them now out on track. And in this very short qualifying session, finding some space is going to be critical. You can already see David Schumacher trailing behind the yellow Mamba being driven by Mauro Engel, and they're all going to be jostling for position. I imagine drivers will want to get that banker lap in. We've seen it in some of the other classes racing this weekend, a red flag coming out late in the session. If you leave it too late, you could end up at the wrong end of the grid. Yeah,
on which note we see Ricardo fella helmet off, not even ready to get into the car. We've seen that before. I've seen it a few times last year. It always makes me nervous. These guys know what they're doing more than I do, of course. But it always makes me nervous when we've seen it from Ricardo Fella last year. We've seen it from Kelvin van der Linde. We've seen it from Mirko Bortolotti. Just don't go out for the first half of qualifying. So then you've got less than 10 minutes. And then, you know, if you get held up in traffic on one lap, or you make a mistake on one lap, and it's happened before, there's a red flag, then suddenly time ticks down. You got 3 minutes of a restart. You haven't even got a lap in yet, and the pressure is on big time. So the cautious side of me always wants them to go out and just get a lap in, just get something on the board. But they will argue that they want to save the tyres and want to make sure that they go out when the circuit is at its best. There is a great addition to our entry, Njuguen, who is the first Turkish driver to compete full-time at the DTM. He had a guest appearance last year. He's in the car that was driven last year by Thomas Priding to such great success, really, getting 2 race wins. The first ever win for Porsche for Thomas Priding last year at the Norris Ring. Dennis Olsen got a win for Porsche as well at Spa, and Thomas was a winner at the Red Bull Ring, the first Austrian driver to win for Porsche at the Red Bull Ring. He's changed teams now, and there he is, ready to go. And of course, he was a big championship contender. He was the on-form driver going into that final weekend at Hockenheim, but got involved in that massive crash that we had at early on in race number 1 on the Saturday, and that was him out for the weekend then, with too much damage to the car. Dennis Olsen likewise, who had to go and have some checks at hospital. He was okay, but that was him out for the weekend because he'd been another driver on form going into that final weekend. David Schumacher was involved in that crash as well. Many drivers were. There were engine parts, whole engines, bodywork flying all over the circuit. It was like an explosion had gone off. So it was all the drama, but it did cost Thomas Priding the chance to go for the championship title. I mentioned David Schumacher being involved in that, and he went well yesterday as well.
Interesting, the cars coming back in, that installation lap, just getting a systems check, making sure everything's working. It does look as though there aren't any drivers who are looking to put in that early banker lap.
No.
One thing about these conditions today, the hot sun is shining, there's more and more rubber getting laid on the track as every car circulates. So the track is only going to get quicker, and we'd expect red flags notwithstanding, the pole position time to come possibly within the last couple of minutes of the qualifying session. So it's all about keeping your powder dry. But it is a risky strategy. As we said before, we've seen red flags at the late on in the session. And if you leave it too late, you can find yourself in the wrong place. But nobody has put in a banker lap at the moment. They've all done their system checks, their installation lap. They're back into the pits. There's just 2 cars out on the track at the moment, Alessio Delida and also Christian Engelhardt. They're just circulating slowly, so expect them back into the pits. Lucas Stoltz, there's a headline. The driver who had a big crash in practice on Thursday. Yesterday didn't really have the pace that he wanted. They found a break in the chassis on that Mercedes AMG. And overnight, they have driven and collected a brand new chassis, and that's what he sits in. The team have done an all-nighter. There's going to be some bleary eyes in that garage. They paid for bed and breakfast. They only got breakfast. And Lucas Stoltz is there in a brand new car. He's got a lot of work to do to dial that in today.
Yeah, he lost a lot of time, running time. He had 3 practice sessions on Thursday, and he did 11 laps of the first one. Didn't get involved in the rest because of that crash. 10 seconds quicker than his previous lap, but only a 1:28.6. But it's provisional pole position for Deleda because he is the only driver that's on track. He's the only driver that's set a lap at the moment. That 5.2 litre naturally aspirated Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo 2 as it now is. We've got another brand new car on the grid, which is the Ferrari as well, when we get to see that. Jack Aitken was going particularly well in the Ferrari, although Thierry Vermeulen looked pretty handy in free practice too as well. And this is the second season for Alessio, whose background prior to DTM was really single-seater racing in Formula 3, the F3 Asian Championship, and did a season in 2021 in the FIA Formula 2 Championship as well. Started out back in Italian F4, but finding his feet last year, and as I say, getting a good top 10 finish in the final race of the season. You only need to get in the top 15 this year, though, to score points, because there's a new point scoring system. The top 15 in each race will score championship points. So this is going to be a proper shootout, isn't it? We've got 12.5 minutes to go. Even if they all went out now, Brian, they're only going to get 10 minutes of running, so half a session essentially. And Deleda is the guinea pig who's sort of mopping up the track here. We've had 1 session already, which was the sports prototype, had a short, sharp 15-minute session. But the track should be good to go, and there he improves his time to a 1:27.903, 198 kilometres an hour average speed. But down the back straight yesterday, they were topping Sheldon van der Linde at the best top speed time of 243 kilometres an hour.
Yes, can you believe we're reaching the halfway point of this qualifying session already, and nobody has a competitive time on the board. This, I predict, is going to get really frantic fairly soon, because everybody is going to go, and finding space on the track where you're not going to trip over anybody is going to be a challenge as we look at Ricardo Feller and the Audi. Right, here we go. Now, somebody's pressed the button somewhere, haven't they? Because now the cars are heading out onto the track. 11.5 minutes of this session remaining. Drivers potentially going to get 2 real shots at getting a hot lap in. The unusual pit lane here at Oschersleben, it comes into the outside of turn 2. The exit into the pit lane is on the exit of the final corner. Quite an unusual configuration. Very lively here. And an unusual corner also is turn 2, and the scene of many an incident over the years. It's a great overtaking opportunity, but also a really tricky corner for these drivers to master. So, a lot of the cars now heading out on track. It's getting busy. Yeah,
they're all going to start moaning that they couldn't get a clean lap in now with all the traffic that's ahead of them. So another quicker time from Deleda with a 1:24.615. That's his best lap of the session. He's going to be running completely out of sequence with everybody else out there, but he had a clean track. You can see him straight lining the chicane there, and you can see why the markers are sprung set, because they get a knock every now and again, so it bounces back up, and through he goes.
Yeah, with Deleda, we've had a notification he's had a cancellation of his lap because of track limits on that corner, so turn 9.
Yeah.
That's the one that's going to catch him out today. The race director, the ever-present topic of track limits, once again rearing its ugly head in the first qualifying session of the year.
So So we'll see what Luca Stolz can do here. Deleida's going quicker than previously as well. 30.3 is a pretty good first sector time, actually. We were getting a few into the 29s for that first sector. The first sector takes in turns 1, 2 and 3. Sector 2, the middle of the lap, takes in that triple S sequence, triple left-hand sequence of turns 4, 5 and 6. The right-hand's almost hairpin at turn 7. The chicane sequence at 8 and 9. And then the right-hander at 10, which leads onto the back straight. And then that ends at the end of that straight. And the last sector, with the first two both being about 29, 30 seconds long each, is more like 45, 46 seconds. It takes in a very quick end of the lap at the twisty sections as well. So we're now about to go into the, well, we are into the final 10 minutes of the session, and Lauren Heinrich sets his first time. It's not a quick one yet, of a 1:31. It's going to be on the next lap, really, that we start to see drivers pushing on their second lap. As we watch Luca Stolz, turn 2 yesterday was the one that caught a few drivers out, sent them wide. That was where Luca Stolz went off on Thursday and damaged his car. So they have to be careful through that first right-hander, don't they?
Yes, they do, and it can bite. We saw drivers pushing the limit yesterday, seeing how far they can get. We saw so many drivers running wide, just seeing where that edge is and how close they can get to it. Every single car is now out on track. Busy much? M25 much? Yes, it is, and Lucas Stolz at the front of a queue of cars at the moment, weaving. Of course, tyre heaters not allowed in DTM, so generating heat into those tyres. It takes a good lap, 2 laps to get the tyres up to temperature. Many of the Porsche drivers are saying it takes longer for the Porsche to get heat into the tyres because, of course, the engine is at the rear. The front tyres, steering, braking, it's very difficult for those first couple of laps because they can't get the heat into the tyres.
Delayed went even quicker on his last lap, so that's a decent time, actually. 1:22.818, that's the benchmark time to beat. So he's going to get all his running in early, but it shows that you can get a few laps out of these Pirelli tyres. They get at this circuit, they get 4 sets of brand new Pirelli slicks, so 4 sets to last 2 qualifying, 2 races. You have to use 1 new set in each of the races as well. And at other circuits, they'll only get 3. But the absolute best first sector time has now gone to Kelvin van der Linde with a 30.1. So number 3, Kelvin van der Linde, the first one on a charge here, making his way around the middle of the lap. And we go on board with Kelvin now, the South African former Nürburgring 24-hour race winner, double ADAC GT Masters champion. And Kelvin pushing on here to see what he can achieve, looking to get, if he can, a low 1:22. And also, we got a couple of others on good first stints. Tim Heinemann in the first sector was good, a good second sector for Tim as well. So he's going to improve his time, and he might provisionally go fastest for a while, but I think Kelvin might be slightly the quicker of the two through the second sector. We'll see what he can do as well. And through the third sector, he'll come to the line now. Crossover, it is not quite going to be there, I don't think. No, 1:25.347, he backed off in the end. And now he's got to try and find some track position. But absolute best first sector has just gone to Nguyen Nguyen with a 29.9 through that first sector. So middle sector, he's about 4/10 down though. So again, Delayda remains at the top for now. Joseph Owega has gone 5th quickest in the Mercedes, 1:26.283 on his debut. And there we can see Nguyen backing off out of the lap, slowing down as we go on board now with Jack Aitken in this brand new Ferrari 296 GT3, the wonderful sound of a V6 turbo engine as you ride on board. And Jack Aitken looks like he's going to have a pretty good lap as he gets to the finish line. What's it going to be? It's going to be provisional pole position with a 1:21.745. Wow. Brian, that's the quickest lap of the weekend so far.
That eclipses the lap that was set by Sheldon van der Linde. Now somebody has gone either wide or gone off there. We just saw that cloud of dust as we ride on board with Jack Aitken, a car that he's using, the team are using for dual campaigns in GT World Challenge as well this year. He really needs to look after that. They don't have a lot of spare parts. Also looking at René Rast, personal best that he's setting in the BMW. But Jack Aitken, a 1:21.745. He is only the 2nd driver this week to get into the 21s. 5.5 minutes remaining of this session. It's still a real challenge to find space out there. So we look at Lauren Heinrich in the 75-year commemoration of Porsche Sports, liveried Porsche. And Heinrich, personal bests in Sector 1 and Sector 2 as well. Franck Pereira, also purple in Sector 1.
Yeah, it was a purple Sector 1 for Heinrich until Pereira went through. So this could be a front row of the grid lap if he's held it together through the final sector. Heinrich about to come through, and he goes quickest by 34 thousandths of a second ahead of Aitken. But Pereira has done an absolute best middle sector as well in the number 94 Lamborghini. Here he is, the Frenchman, about to come out of the final turn. Oh, way out wide, kicks up the dust. That will have taken a few hundredths of a second away from him, and he still does it. That's impressive. No, he was definitely too wide out of the last corner. He could have been even quicker, but 1:21.601 is provisional pole. Heinrich second, Jack Aitken bumped down to third. Guen is fourth, Heinemann is fifth, Kelvin van der Linde is sixth. Roger Miney, first ever Indian driver in the DTM, in his third season now, and podium finisher in the DTM. Didn't get on the podium last year, but he's had a good qualifying so far, and he's up there in the top 8 as well. Maro Engel, though, has gone 5th quickest. Maro, last season, 12th in the championship. Believe it or not, his best ever season in DTM. He's a far better driver than those results would have you believe. As Heinemann now goes quickest, 1:21.5. So that's a terrific lap. Terrific lap. That's a 10th clear. And 4 minutes to go. I reckon it's going to keep changing, Brian.
Yeah, we always thought this session was going to get quicker and quicker. Lauren Heinrich, a quick Sector 1. Drivers are at the wrong end of the table at the moment. Rene Rast was further down, but he's now just popped up into P2. This is an ever-changing picture. Sheldon van der Linde currently 25th out of 27 drivers, so he needs to find a bit of space. He's got a little over 3.5 minutes to sort this one out and get himself up at the sharp end of the grid. Still, Tim Heinemann, you see someone else has gone wide there. You saw the dust. Heinemann at 1:21.5. That is an epic lap.
Here's Lucas Sauer. We got Rast in second place, Pereira in third now. Lucas Sauer coming back from a bad injury at Daytona in the IMSA Sports Car Series at the start of the year, where he broke his vertebrae. He came back into the car for testing only about 4 weeks ago. And he didn't do the second free practice session yesterday, but he was pretty good in the first one. So he's out there. Great to see last year's championship runner up out there in action. Here is Rene Rast then, who's only just down at the moment on Tim Heinemann's time, the double DTM trophy champion, quickest at the moment in the number 9 Porsche. But the BMW on this lap's going well as well. He was just a fraction down through that last sector. Clement Schmidt, the Austrian driver, has gone into the top 5 in his Lamborghini as well. Here comes Rene Rast, the 3-time champion. Can he get the BMW onto the front row? Not quite. Third quickest, because Ricardo Fella, his teammate from last year, has put the Audi to the top of the times. 1:21.493 by a whopping country mile of 7 thousandths of a second.
That much. Ricardo Fella, the former GT Masters champion, he's done a fair few laps around this Oschersleben circuit, as has Christian Engelhardt, who crosses the line. Engelhardt up into P9. Tim Heinemann still in second. You discount Rene Rast at your peril, though. Whoever thought it was going to take him a long time to get used to that BMW, you are mistaken, because Rast is there and he's still pushing on, pushing hard, and he's still not out of contention for this yet. Mick Wiesofer jumps up into second. Franck Pereira, 21.3. They are smashing the records.
Yeah, Franck Pereira did an absolute best first sector. He lost a 10th or so in the middle sector, but he gained it all back at the end of the lap. Bortolotti puts his Lamborghini third. We've got 3 Lamborghinis in the top 4 at the moment. In between them a Ferrari. Italy cheers on. Pereira, Aitken, Bortolotti, and now Wiesover are the top 4. Fella, who was first about 10 seconds ago, he's now 5th. Thomas Briding, his first flying lap, goes 6th place. Sheldon van der Linde is still back in 18th position. The BMW of Marco Wittmann, which didn't put any really quick times in yesterday in free practice, is back in 21st place now on Project One's debut for the 2-time champion. So he needs a good lap as well. We see what Lauren Heinrich can do as well to try and get himself back up there. The Porsche champion is in 9th place at the moment, albeit he's only 0.2 of a second down, and he goes way out wide, drops the wheel over the curbs coming out of the last turn and crosses the line, but only 9th place. Cost him too much time, that. But he does get one more lap out of this. We're into the final minute. He'll have another go to try and improve. But it's this man, Franck Pereira, who's the driver to beat by only 18 thousandths of a second, with Jack Aitken now second and on the front row of the grid provisionally by just a fraction. And you've only got 56 thousandths of a second covering the top 3, with Bortolotti in third. We're on board with Thomas Preining, who's done a personal best first sector, got a bit of time in the second sector. We're right on board with him now, but in his second season of DTM, he'll be a real threat. He'll get one more lap out of this as well, Brian. Let's see how he gets on. He crosses the line now, and maybe not quite enough. No, 6th place.
I can't get my head around Frank Pereira. Where has he come from? He's the oldest driver in the field. He's been around for quite a long time in GT racing, just always there. But what an epic job from him and Jack Aitken as well. We continue to ride on board with this Porsche. Some great shots here. Thomas Preining, the cam in the splitter. You get a great view of what he's doing. But Thomas Preining currently in that 6th place, personal best in Sector 1. But it doesn't look like he's going to improve that much on this lap. The checkered flag is out on this qualifying session. The drivers that are currently on the lap are able to complete it, and that time will count.
And Sheldon van der Linde, a slow first sector. He's not going to improve. At best, he's going to be 19th on the grid. That's a real surprise after putting in the quickest lap yesterday, a 1:21.9 in free practice. So not a great start, I'm afraid, for Sheldon. Others don't look like they're really improving on the first sector either. Lucas Auer's on a pretty good lap. He hasn't done personal best sector times. He's back in 18th place at the moment. Sheldon van der Linde back in 19th position currently, and not looking like something major happens at the end of the lap. He's going to improve. I wonder what the story will be. Will it be traffic? Will it be the car wasn't quite underneath him? But either way, the BMWs have not gone great, have they, with René Rast, who was up there for a while, ending up as the best of the BMWs, but back in 8th place. Van der Linde in 19th place, and Marco Wittmann back in 21st. We've got some very quick drivers. Lucas Stoltz is back there in 25th as well. Could be a race of watching the front of the grid and keeping an eye on the charging drivers from the back of the grid as well, because some really quick drivers out of position. But at the start of his first full season in the DTM, Frank Pereira, the French driver, with a 1:21.370, steals pole position by 18 thousandths of a second. And Brian, we had 24 of the 27 cars split by 7/10 of a second.
Wow. Bring on the balance of performance. That's what I say. Great job. But it is 3 Lamborghinis in the top 4. Only Jack Aitken's Ferrari spoiling the party at the top of the field, then an Audi. The BMWs, who were looking so strong yesterday, as you've already mentioned, a long way back. There are some big names a long way down the grid. Marco Wittmann down in 21st place. Sheldon van der Linde in 19th place. A lot of work to do from there. Mauro Engel down in 20th place. I should think the first race of the season that takes place later on today is going to be really dramatic as these drivers fight their way through. But Frank Pereira, the oldest driver in the field, but you wouldn't believe he's so much experience, and he's really putting that to good use. The team in the SSR Performance Garage congratulating him. What a phenomenal job from Frank Pereira.
Yeah, SSR Performance in their second season of the DTM. Ran Porsches last year with Lawrence Ventura and Dennis Olsen. Now running the Lamborghini. They get pole position as their start of the partnership with a Lamborghini begins. Frank Pereira, we shouldn't be surprised he's up there. He's a very, very accomplished driver. He was 4th in qualifying in his debut last season at the Norris Ring, but he had a horrific race weekend, as many did, because of a big pile-up at the hairpin, and he got involved in that. So he had a DNF and a DNS. So he's yet to finish a DTM race, but he'll be starting this one from pole position. And on debut, Jack Aitken, terrific effort in the Ferrari as well, with a 1:21.388. So the new Ferrari and the new driver in terms of DTM. Great combination that looks like it's going to be. That's second. Bortolotti, who's the one regular front runner from last year that's had a good qualifying session with it, and he qualifies 3rd. Wieshofer again, going a bit under the radar, but getting himself onto the second row of the grid. Ricardo Feller ended up in 5th place. Thomas Preining in 6th, Tim Heinemann in 7th, René Rast in 8th, and then Lauren Heinrich 9th, and Kelvin van der Linde, you're seeing there, in 10th place with work to do as well. But, 10th place, but only 2/10 of a second away from pole position. Having a chat with brother Sheldon there, see if we can hear what they're saying. So much dust at the end. It was terrible, understeery. So that's why they all waited. They're waiting for the dust to clear. Leaving them in his dust was Frank Pereira. That was a terrific effort, wasn't it?
Well, we said that qualifying session was going to be exciting, and boy, did it deliver on that front. Big stories already, and Sheldon van der Linde was the first time I've seen him looking vaguely rattled all week, actually, and Kelvin van der Linde, well, he's not that far back. But qualifying complete for race 1.
So there is how they will line up for the first round of the season. Championship leader, Frank Pereira, because he gets 3 points for qualifying on pole. 2 points for Jack Aitken in second, and a point for Mirko Bortolotti in third. Wieshofer on debut, an excellent fourth for the Austrian. Feller and Preining round out the third row of the grid, and then Heinemann and Rast will be on the fourth row. Heinrich and Kelvin van der Linde will complete the top 10. Dennis Olsen and Clement Schmidt will start on the sixth row of the grid, with Christian Engelhardt, Thierry Vermeulen just behind 13th and 14th. 15th and 16th, Ayenjen Nguyen and David Schumacher. Yusuf Owega, pretty good session in 17th on his debut. Lucas Auer back in 18th, last year's championship runner-up, but ahead of the championship winner from last year, Sheldon van der Linde, who's 19th. Maro Engel, 20th. Former champion Marco Wittmann back in 21st, ahead of Niederhauser, Engstler, Argentini. Lucas Stoltz on that new chassis for the weekend after his crash, and Matteo Drudi, who was quick yesterday but struggled today. Deleda, who was provisional pole, is the one that went out early on, ends up at the back of the field with that 1:22.784, which he wasn't able to improve upon here at Oschersleben. So that sets the grid, sets the benchmark for what promises to be a wide open season of the championship. There from the overhead view, get a replay of David Schumacher and the 27 Mercedes going out wide at, undercutting on the way into turn 2, and then almost being collected by Tim Heinemann's Porsche. So that ruined a potentially good lap for Schumacher, who's looking for his first points in the DTM in his second season now of the championship, but showing signs of improving all the time. Ralf Schumacher's son, and that was certainly not the only driver to have fallen foul of what may be a slightly slippery track here in the feedback that we're getting from Kelvin van der Linde. And there, turn 2 again is the one that's been catching them out, isn't it? Drifting wide, understeering through there. It's quite bumpy on the way into that turn. We saw it from some of the slow-mos in free practice yesterday. They clipped the inside curb, and that unsettles the car anyway. Great drone shot there as the Lambo tried to get back on track. And this is the super slow-mo of Jack Aitken. Also, despite his experience, the driver that's competed one Formula 1 Grand Prix, the Williams development driver and reserve driver for the last few seasons, and did one Grand Prix at Bahrain a couple of years ago, standing in for George Russell, and then competing very successfully in GT cars the last couple of years, and sports cars. And there you rear-facing onboard camera looking out of the grilling at the back of the Ferrari. But that, again, was a victim of turn 2, and they were going off all the time. Because every time somebody went off there, Brian, they came back on, brought a load of dust back onto the track with them, and that made it slippery for everybody else, didn't it? And we didn't really see any improvements for the last couple of laps of the race, did we?
No.
Or the session, rather.
I mean,
felt like a race.
It did, didn't it? Yes, the hotel turn is always a tough corner, a controversial corner, and the added dust and gravel that's dragged on by all of the spinning cars did not help things at all. But even when the likes of Jack Aitken are getting caught out by it, you know it's a tough and complicated corner, as we look at Maro Engel just disappearing off out of the pit lane.
So Kelvin van der Linde there, not looking particularly thrilled with life, but it could have been worse. Congratulates his teammate Ricardo Fellow, who did a good job for 5th place, didn't he? And there, Frank Pereira receives the award for pole position from Pirelli. As I say, gets those 3 championship points to get his first championship points in the DTM. With Jack Aitken, likewise, Mirko Bortolotti gets the point for 3rd place as well. So Frank Pereira, the French driver who spent the last few seasons in the ADAC GT Masters Championship, finished 5th in the championship with Emile Frey Racing last year. With Emile Frey in a Lamborghini, moves to the Grasser Racing team, but in a Lamborghini this year. And there, René Rast, who's switched teams and switched brands to BMW this year, the 3-time champion. He won't be enamoured with 8th place, but it felt like a session where it could have been a lot worse, because getting caught out by the traffic, getting caught out by the dust on the circuit were several other drivers. So it won't be fantastic, but he won't be too despondent, I don't think, with 8th place.
Yes, and we haven't actually mentioned Mirko Bortolotti that much in 3rd place, of course, in the other of the SSR performance cars. So the SSR cars really very dialed in during this session, and a good job by Mirko Bortolotti as well. The Lamborghini really coming on strong.
Yeah, they all look forward, as do we then, to the first race of the season. That starts at 1:30 local time. We'll be on air 15 minutes beforehand to bring you all the build-up to round 1 of DTM 2023. From me, Chris Hartley and Brian Oliver, hope you enjoyed the qualifying. We'll see you again later on today. Bye for now.